I recently made a video called What the Heck is Happening in China? And it's been one of my most popular videos to date. Thank you for watching it. It surprised me because it was about the economy, which is not usually all that interesting to people, but I think there's a lot more background to it that needs to be understood. So I'm going to explain some of why it is that China's economy hasn't peaked as many people suggest, and why it's in no imminent danger of collapse either. Wherever you are, welcome to another edition of My Take on China. And if you like my outfit, it's because I've been out all day with my local media, Zhongshan Ribao, getting a look at some of Guangdong's institutions. And I just thought I'd leave it on. One of the things I like about my role as a media commentator is that it's not a job, it's a hobby. Despite the implications and frequent allegations, I don't get paid for this. And where other vloggers get taken to fantastic scenic spots or interesting corporations doing fantastic things, I get to see the more mundane side of China, how it works on a day-to-day basis, and it fascinates me. I hope it also leads to interesting things for you to learn from what I'm learning when I'm doing it. So there has been a regional forum on Hainan Island. The heads of states of several countries, major institutions, and some former heads of state and diplomats were there. About 5,000, maybe 6,000 people from more than 60 countries. A few days earlier, there was a China Development Forum with about 400 people in Beijing, including the World Bank president and the IMF managing director. And at the same time, there's been a high-quality development briefing held in Guangdong province, where I live, to describe what's happening and where my province is going. To say it's all happening in China would really be an understatement. It's all happening in China right now. So for the people who don't know the history and geography, Guangdong is historically known as Canton. It's the place that first opened to foreign maritime visitors. It's also the location of Hong Kong and Macau historically. It is and remains an important trading place. How important? Well, there are only 10 countries in the world with a higher GDP than Guangdong province. Guangdong has ranked first in the nation in China in terms of trade for 35 consecutive years. And despite there being 22 provinces, 5 autonomous regions, 4 municipalities, and 2 special administrative regions, Guangdong alone contributes 10% to the national economy. It really is important. It's also home to about 126 million people, including me, and that makes it the most populous region in China, without even counting the SARs of Hong Kong and Macau. Now, there's a newly invented media description being used to define China. First of all, China was collapsing, but then that didn't happen. So now media keep telling us, no, we got that wrong, China has peaked. The truth is, that's only wishful thinking. The press briefing from the Guangdong meeting is now over, and the important takeaway is that Guangdong will continue with manufacture-led high-quality development during the economic transition period. Now, what does this economic transition period mean? It means that China already knows the old model has peaked. What the experts haven't quite realized is that China's known about this for years, and they've been implementing a planned transition for a long time. And there are 2 things that we need to consider. Let's look at them one at a time. First is the transition from mass-produced, low-price goods. And here's an important point. If you think goods from China are shoddy and fall to bits easily, don't blame China. Blame the place you bought it from, because you can bet the device you're complaining on was made in China, and that works just fine, doesn't it? Quality issues aren't about China's workmanship. They're very much about what your supplier was prepared to pay to have delivered and sold to you in their retail outlets. China put a rover on Mars, and it worked for 3 months longer than its planned lifetime. There's still hope that after a period of hibernation, it might even reactivate. China sent hypersonic rockets around the world, something the US has consistently failed to do. China refueled a satellite in orbit. NASA can't do that. And it sent to and received things back from the moon. China has people living in a space station. That's hardly shoddy workmanship. Clearly, China can build high-quality products when they're tasked to do so. If they built shoddy products, it's because they were tasked to do so by the people selling you cheap, shoddy products. So China has transitioned from low to high tech with what they're now calling the 3 new products. They're not that new, but China has and is leading the way in solar panels, more accurately photovoltaic cells, lithium-ion batteries, and new energy vehicles. That's the 3 products. Now, the other economic transition is the change in destination for Chinese goods. We all know that the US imports less products from China now. And if we watch US media, they'll gleefully tell us that the US economy grew by over 2%, and now there's less reliance on China. What they forgot to tell us is that the less reliance on made in China has put a much higher reliance on products sourced from China. Did you know, for example, there's a direct correlation between the reduction of US imports from China, the increase of China's exports to Mexico, and the increase of Mexico's exports to the USA. But what's more important than that is the fact, not a media misinterpretation, the fact that exports from China increased in the first 2 months of this year. In fact, it's been better than that. China's exports have increased steadily for the last 6 months of last year too. Western experts predicted a 1% increase. China delivered over 7%. How did that happen? They went to what we used to call the underdeveloped or the third world economies. For the first time ever, China's exports to developing nations overtook those of the developed nations. And here I'm going to do something unusual. I'm going to cite myself in a recently published article where I proved that China's falling exports to the US and the EU signal a transition to new markets, not a reduction in exports. The national increase in exports was 7.1% in January and February, and a huge percentage of that comes from right here in Guangdong. International leaders know this. BASF, Shell, and Exxon are all heavily invested in Guangdong. McDonald's, for example, is investing massively in China and has not only bought back the shares it sold a few years ago, it plans now to double the number of outlets by 2028. Starbucks announced in 2023 that it would open 9,000 branches by 2025. Hilton also announced last year that they are continuing to increase locations in China. The list goes on. You do the research, see how many corporations are actively growing in the Chinese market, and then come back and tell us all how China may have peaked. If you ask me, China's economy is only just getting going, and the whole world is going to benefit from that. Thanks once again for watching my take on China, and I will see you next time. Don't forget, like, share, and check the subscribe button. Bye for now.